Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michi Catanese, and I'm with Smith Micro Software. This is the Creating Animations in Anime Studio Pro 11 webinar. I'm joined by Victor Paredes. Victor is an award-winning animator, and he's also an Anime Studio Master. So welcome, Victor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Many of you are probably familiar with Victor's work. He's helped to create several animations for Smith Micro, including the Anime Studio 11 trailer that came out earlier, and also he's done several fantastic pieces with Floor Films, with the company that he works for. Victor's also helped us with several webinars in the past. If you haven't had a chance to check those out, they're on our website, and be sure to go review those when you have a chance. A few things for today's webinar. I wanted to let you all know that all attendees will be muted. If you have any questions, please type them in the questions window. We will be doing a question and answer session at the end of the webinar, and we'll do our best to get to all of the questions. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded. It will be posted on our website within 24 hours, so check back or follow us on social media, and we'll let you know when it's available. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Victor and let him get started.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I want to focus this webinar in new features like frame by frame and references, and especially in frame by frame. But before starting, I want to make you a little recommendation about the preferences for the software. So if you are inside Anime Studio, you can go to Edit and Preferences if you are in Windows, or go to the Preferences the other way if you are in Mac. I don't have a Mac, so I don't remember where, but you can find the preferences. And inside the preferences, go to Tools, and the classic point editing keyboard shortcut will be probably checked. Okay, so I recommend you to uncheck that. Okay, that's why. That's because there is a new behavior with the keyboard shortcuts for Anime Studio 11, which, in my opinion, is much better than the previous one. So, for example, if I uncheck the classic point editing keyboard shortcuts, and for example, I create a line here and select some points. In the past, to unselect points or a shape or anything, I had to press Enter. Okay, so Enter means to unselect points, but with the new shortcut, the unselect shortcut is Escape in the keyboard. So Escape does much more sense, makes much more sense to unselect than Enter, which is more a shortcut to confirm something. Okay, so that's one thing. The other one is weld. Normally, with the classic shortcuts, if we want to weld a point over a line, we had to press spacebar. But now, to weld, we have to press Enter with this new shortcut. So it makes more sense also, because Enter confirms the weld. And finally, if we want to create a shape with the Create Shape tool, we had to select the points and then also press spacebar. But with the new shortcut, we have to press Enter, and that makes more sense because we confirm the shape creation, and also let the spacebar the only task of playing the animation. So if I want to play my animation, I press the spacebar. So there is not conflicts between shortcuts. Okay, so it gets a little time to get used to the new shortcuts, but it really helps for a more intuitive workflow. Okay, so I want to start with the very basic stuff of frame by frame animation. So I created a new file, and I have frame by frame here, so I can create a new frame by frame layer. Okay, and a new frame by frame layer is related to a switch layer. They are layers very similar, but the idea of frame by frame layer is that you just draw. You don't worry about selecting layers or making anything. You create a new frame and draw. That's all. I mean, it is very cool, but that's the basic idea. So, for example, we have the new frame by frame animation selected, and when it is selected, we have these new buttons here, which are create a new frame or delete a frame, and the other buttons which I will explain later. But right now, for example, I go to frame 1 and create a new frame, and you will see that a new channel appears, which is the switch layer channel, okay, which is the same channel for frame by frame animation, and now I can draw over this. So for example, I paint this ball, and now if I want to create a new frame, I move in the timeline, for example, to frame 12, and press the add frame button and create a new frame. Okay, so I can continue creating shapes. Okay, so that's the first idea about creating frames. Now, if you don't want to go to the button, you also have a shortcut for creating a new frame, which is F5 in the keyboard. So I press F5, and now I can create a new frame. Okay, so I will undo this. Okay, so again, I have only one frame, and the other way to add frames is to not I don't need to move myself in the timeline. For example, if I have a keyframe in frame 1 and I press add frame, the new frame will be created next to the previous one. So I just create and draw, create and draw. Okay, and you can see how in the timeline all these frames are being created, okay, automatically. Now, this happens because we have here an interval selection, okay? So we have this in 1. So that means that each frame I draw will last 1 frame. So every illustration I make will last 1 frame. But for example, if I set this to 20, for example, and now I create a new frame, the next frame will be 20 frames after the previous one. Okay, so you can see I can add, and I have very separated keyframes here. Okay, so now every key will last 20 frames. Of course, I can remap this time by moving the keyframe. So for example, if I want that this keyframe last a little less, I can select the next one and move it to the left. So you can see how now this is shorter and this is larger, or this is longer. Okay, so I can move, or I can move several together, so that way I can remap my animation. Okay, so now I will create another new file and another frame by frame layer, and for example I will create a ball. Okay, so I have a ball here. I want to increase the size of my freehand tool. Okay, I have a ball. Okay, and I want to animate this ball in 2s. So I will set here the number 2 and hit enter, and that means that every time I press this button, the next frame created will be 2 frames after the previous one. Okay, so I have my ball here, and I press add frame, and you can see how now the next keyframe is created 2 frames after the previous one. Okay, and now another thing which is different in Anime Studio 11 is the onion skin. So we have had onion skins for a long time ago, since the Mojo days, but now we have this little button here which turn on or off the onion skins. And this button also has a shortcut which is Control L, I think. Okay, so you can turn on or off the onion skins, like turning on or off the light down on of your paper. Okay, so and I can configure, I can set up my onion skin. So by default it is outlines only, but I can uncheck that. So now I can see the real shape I draw. And also I have colored fields, and colored fields is very useful because every onion skins which is before my current time will be painted in red, and every onion skin which is in the future or after my current time will be painted in green. So I can see the past and the future in different colors, so it keeps things in order. Okay, so I will let this here, and now I can see my ball here, so I will move the ball down. So let's suppose I draw another ball, now add a new frame, and I will add a new frame by frame animation, and now my ball will touch the ground. So I scratch and stretch a little, and now add a new frame. My ball is still touching the ground, but now it's squashed. Okay, and now create a new frame, and the ball will be going up. Okay, create a new one, and it will be upper, new one. Let's suppose it is already here. Okay, I can move the points down, and the next one, it is almost there. Okay, so now I will turn off my onion skins, and I have my ball bouncing. So if I hit play, the ball is bouncing. Okay, so I use onion skins for this very simple animation. Okay, but now I want to show you the onion skins from past and future. So for example, here I have 2 onion skins in the past, and I can set up 2 onion skins in the future, so you can see how the onion skins in the past are red and the future onion skins are in green. Okay, so that's very useful. But now I want to show you another thing, so I will create a new file. The good thing, or one of the good things about frame by frame animation inside Anime Studio, is that we can combine the normal Anime Studio features like rigging or like vector animation with frame by frame. So for example, I will create a base here. I am not an expert in frame by frame animation, so I want to show you how to get some stuff from frame by frame, but I am sure that you will get better results than me. But my idea of this webinar is you understand how to work with frame by frame inside this software, more than making something too beautiful. Okay, so I will create a circle here. Okay, let's suppose I have a circle here, and I will create an animation of 15 frames. So I have my circle going up, but also becoming smaller. Okay, so I will start with the circle smaller, maybe a little bigger here. Okay, let's suppose this. Okay, so that I have this very simple animation. Okay, and now I will create a cycle for this animation. So I can right click the last keyframes and set cycle, and I will set a cycle which go back to frame 1. Okay, so I have my circle going up, okay, in a cycle. Now I want to duplicate this layer, so I will create duplicate this layer and move this copy to the left. So now I have 2 circles, and I want to create another copy and move it to the right, and another copy and move it in between that 2, and another copy and maybe move it in between the other 2. So now I have 5 balls going up. Okay, and now I will group, no, sorry, and now I will go to the sequencer and I will move the time of these balls. So I want to offset the time. So for example, layer 2 will be up when the other balls are down. So I am offsetting the movements. Okay, so maybe layer 3 will be down here. Okay, and maybe layer 4 is around the middle here. And maybe this one is here. Okay, so I have this very simple animation of 5 balls going up. And now, to keep things in order, I will group this, all these layers, okay, and I will name it as base. Okay, just to put everything inside a group. Okay, and now I will create a frame by frame animation. Okay, so I have my frame by frame animation, my frame by frame layer, sorry. But now I want to create a style for this this animation. So a style is something very similar to the materials inside a 3D software. So a style is a color or an effect you can apply to different shapes. So for example, I can have 10 shapes with the same color and then modify the style and change the color of the 10 shapes at the same time. Okay, so I only need to modify the style, and everything that has that style applied will be also modified. So let me show you with an example. I will go to my color window here and click Advanced. Okay, and now when I click Advanced, I got this button here, which is Styles. So I press this button and create a new style here. Okay, so I will create this style as, I will name it Line. Okay, so this style is called Line, and I want the stroke of this line to be red. Okay, maybe the line width to be 8. Let's suppose that. Okay, I could apply some other aspects inside the style, but now I just want to change that, the color of the line and the line width. Okay, and now once I am ready, I go again to styles here and set none. Okay, and when I set none, I go back to the normal color window. Okay, this is the color window which is the default color. So if I change a color here and paint, my new shape will be painted with the default color. So here in the default color I have here, I have the style 1. So I will set the style 1 as line. So I have my line setup, And that means that every line I create will be red. You see, because my style is red. Even when the default color says black, the software ignores the black color and paint it red because it has the red style applied. Okay, so now once I have this selected, I go to frame 1 and create a new frame for the frame by frame layer, and I want to create an envelope for these balls. So my idea is to create a very basic fire based on these balls. Okay, so I will create an envelope here. So for example, I will create this and this. Okay, and once I am ready, I will create the next frame following the same criteria. Okay, the next frame. So you can see I am using the balls as base for a more complex animation. Okay, this probably won't be perfect, but it will work as example. Okay, suppose here. And here. Okay, so my animation of the balls lasts 15 frames, so it is the same that my fire will last. So here comes the last frame of the fire. Okay, so now I have my fire set up and I can see the animation, but to see it more clear, I will hide the base layer, and now I have my fire. So you can see how we have a fire. I will hit play to see the fire moving. Okay, so I have a very basic, very basic fire moving based on these vector layers. Okay, so now if you want to animate fire, water, or any other natural effect by doing frame by frame, I can recommend you the book Elemental Magic by Joseph Gilland, which I haven't read entirely yet, and you can see in my animation, but it is very good to have an idea, and that guy is a master, and of course you can learn a lot more from him than from me. So, well, finally, I will paint this fire, but just using the freehand. So I will paint each frame in a very ugly way. Okay, so for example, I will paint here. Maybe I want less smoothing for my pencil. Okay, so I will paint this. Go to the next frame. Okay, paint. I am trying to do this as fast as I can. Okay, but I am almost done. And okay, I finished. So I have my fire painted, very badly painted, but it is painted. So now I want to show you the style, because we applied a style for this. So here comes the good part about using styles, especially for frame by frame animation. If I go to advanced in the color window, I can go back to styles and select line, Okay, so now I am inside this material, which is called line. And now, for example, I can change the color. I don't know, maybe I don't want my fire to be red. I want it blue, so I paint it blue, and I change the color once, and all the fire will change. Okay. Or maybe I can change something else. For example, the line width is 8 here. I can reduce this, so I will have a thinner line, or I can get a thicker line. So for example here, now my fire is very different to the one I draw. Okay, and I have more effects. For example, I could apply an effect to my fire. Okay, and that effect will be applied for all the frames. Or I can add a brush. For example, I can set up a brush. Let me find something. No, maybe. There are so many brushes, it is hard to decide, but okay, let's select one of the beginning. Let's suppose this one. Okay, so I have this brush. Okay, so now if I hit OK, now my style is very different. Okay, so my fire is something else now. And if I increase the line width, now my fire is very different, and I can play with alpha. So for example, I can set the alpha, and the animation will be different too. Maybe not so much for this brush, but with other brushes it works better. So here's the idea of having a style. So you can see how easy it is to change the entire animation by just clicking in the style window. Okay, so I recommend you to always, when you will be animating in frame by frame, to create styles before animating. Okay, so for example, I will create another file, and no, I want to go back to the fire. I forgot something. It is little, but I will create a cycle for the fire. Okay, so now my fire is cycling. Okay, and now I can duplicate the fire. For example, I will create a copy of the fire, and I can move it, maybe flip it. Okay, so for example, now I have this copy here, maybe a little smaller. So now I have two fires. Okay, and now to make it look less symmetrical, I can go to the sequencer and move the copy a little to the left. So now the fire is not happening, it's not moving at the same time. So that can work. That can work better. Okay, so I can create a longer fire just by duplicating the original. Making it bigger or smaller, and then moving it with the sequencer. So we have a different animation here. Okay, so we can create a bigger fire just by duplicating just copying the original one. Okay, so now I want to create another file. So I will create a new file and drink some water. Okay. And in this file, I will create a new frame-by-frame layer. Okay. So now I created the new frame-by-frame layer, and I will name this frame-by-frame layer. I will name it original. Okay, and with big letters. Okay, so I want you to see that this is the original. Okay, and now I will create, no, sorry, I will create a reference from this original layer. It is very important that I create the original layer. I don't draw anything. I don't add any frame. Before I do anything inside that layer, I create a reference from it. So I will create a reference from this original layer, and I will name it backup. Okay, so I just created a backup for that original layer, and I will move the backup here. Okay, and you can see how the backup has an arrow on its icon. Okay, and that means this backup is a reference. If you don't know what is a reference, I can show you in a new file. So I created a new file, and references are something very simple in the theory. So for example, I can create a star. Okay, so I have a star with a line width. Okay, so I can create a reference from this star. So I create the reference. Okay, and now I will move the reference to the side. So I have two stars. Okay, but the good thing about references is that now if I move a point from the original star, the reference star will also move. You see? So I can move the points, or I can change the curvature. You see? So now it is not a star, it is something like a ghost. Okay, so you can see how everything I do in the first one is reproduced by the second one. Okay, so this is the more basic idea of references. And if I change the color from the original, for example, I want my ghost to be a little more in this color, the reference will also change. Okay, so I can animate only one layer and have the animation in the second one. Okay, now if I go to the reference layer, which is this one, and I, for example, change the color of the reference layer, so I this to be more blue. Okay, if I change this and now go back to the original layer and change the color of the original, you can see how the color of the second one, of the reference, is not being modified by the first one. It is because I changed the color manually in the reference. So the software assumes that when I change something from the reference, it is because I don't want that specific channel to be related with the original. Okay, so for example, this is good in the case I need several of these characters. So for example, I can create another reference here and move and have another character here, for example, and with another color. But anyway, I want the three characters, even when they have different colors, I want the three characters to wave the arms. Okay, so I have this, but I have some channels that are independent to the layer. Okay, so every channel I change in the reference will lose the connection to the original, And if I want to fix that relationship, I just go to the channel here, which is surrounded by a blue rectangle, and I can right-click the channel and press Sync Channel to the original. And when I press that, the channel get disappeared, and I can see how now the color is again related to the original. Okay, so if I made a mistake and change something I don't want to change, I always can fix that. Okay, so this is the very basic idea of references. Now I can animate, for example, this character to wave. Suppose he waves here, and now he waves down. Okay, so I have, and then it will wave up again. So he is doing this, and a good thing is that I can go to the sequencer and change the time, for example, for this reference. So I can make this character to start after the original one, and I can make this one to start before the original. So now my animation is offset. You can see the characters are making the same animation, but at different times. So this is very useful, for example, if you want to animate a crowd. Okay, so you can have one animation but being reproduced at different times. So this animation could have a cycle. For example, I could create a cycle here, and now I have an eternal animation of this ghost waving, but all them at different times. Okay, so this is the most basic use for references. And now I am back to the file where I created the original layer, which is an empty frame-by-frame layer, and I have a backup here, okay, which is a reference from the original empty frame-by-frame layer. Okay, so first, before animating, I will create a new style for the line. So, for example, I will name this line, and I want my lines to be in a darker blue. Okay, and maybe 14 of line width. Okay, so now I have set up my style, and I will set none. And once I set none, I am back to the normal color window, to the default color window, and now I set style here and set line. Okay, so what I did was to tell the software that every new line I draw will have this style applied. Okay, that's the basic idea. So I will go to frame 1 and create a new frame, and I will create a simple character. Okay, very simple. So I will create a beard here. Okay, and now I don't know if I told you that, but the freehand tool now has an eraser inside it. So if I press Ctrl, I can erase sections of line. Okay, so I can use the pen as an eraser. Okay, so that's very useful. So you just press Ctrl and erase the lines. Okay, so I will create a simple character here, very simple. So I will create a beard. Okay, I have my very simple beard here. Okay, and I want to create a head turn. So, for example, I will go to frame 18 and add a new frame and turn on the onion skins. Okay, to know what I have to paint, and I will create the character turning to the other side. Okay, I insist I am not an expert on frame by frame animation, but the idea is more important than the actual animation in this case. Okay, so I have this, and you can see it is actually not very animated. We have 2 frames, only 2 frames, which flips the head. So to get a better animation, I will go to the first frame, which is all vector, and I will select the points of these frames and copy them. So I will press Ctrl C to copy them, and I will create a new frame here, and inside this new frame I will paste these points. Okay, so now I will activate an onion skin for the previous pose. Okay, and I will use the share point tool, this one. Okay, and I will share the character to the left and now move it to keep consistent in the base. Okay, so I am anticipating the turning, and now I will go to the other frame, copy the points of this frame, and create a new frame here and paste that frames. And again, I will set up a new onion skin, use the share points tool, and I will share the character to the right. Okay, here. So now I have an anticipation and a reaction for the head turn. So now if I test my animation, you can see it looks much better, even when we made something very easy, which was to share the points to create an anticipation, and then it rotates, but it goes beyond the normal position and then goes back to the normal position. Okay, so you can see it is very easy to create that, and if we want, we can create a new frame here, and I will activate the onion skins in previous and next frame. So you can see the previous is red and the next is green, and I will create an in between here. Okay, it will be, let's suppose it is something like this. Okay, this is an ugly in between, but it will work for the webinar. So now we have a short in between, but it helps to give the sensation we are making a head turn. Okay, so I have in the original layer, I have this happening. Okay, and maybe I can copy these points again, and I will create a new frame, paste these frames, but I will make my character to blink, then create a new one, and maybe make a new eyes which are looking to the other side. Okay, so we have this very simple animation. Now we have the backup here. Okay, and if we go to the backup layer, we can see the backup has the same keyframes we added to the original. Okay, but the good thing about the backup is that if I check this, these frames are actually empty. They have no vectors inside. Okay, so this is an special behavior that frame by frame referenced layers had. So now I can use the backup to create different layers from the same frame by frame animation. Let me show you. For example, I will duplicate the backup, and I will name it head and move it here. Okay, so now I have original and head, but head is an empty layer. So for head, I will create a new style, which will be called head also, and maybe it will be, I don't know, this color, maybe darker, this one. Okay, so I have a new style which is called head. I will go back to none to go back to the normal timeline, and now in style I will set head. So now I will use the block brush tool to paint the head. So I will paint the head here, okay, maybe with a bigger brush. So I will paint all these frames. Okay, I can use control to erase some parts I missed. Okay, so I am painting the head. Continue painting the head. Of course, you can do it this much better than me, but it works for the tutorial. Okay, let's pause here, and the last 2 frames. Okay, so now I have my character painted. Okay, so I have the original and the fill for the head. Okay, so the good thing about this is that if I go back to the original, and for example I want to remap this animation, I want the blink to be after this, for example in second 2, the head will also move its keyframes because they have a connection with the original. Okay, so now I can edit this, and I always have that connection with the original. The only important thing here is that if I want to remap the animation, or if I want to modify or add or erase a frame, I need to do it in the original. If I do that in the head, for example, if I take the head frame by frame layer and move a frame, I automatically will lost the connection of these frames with the original. So if I modify the original, the head won't be modified. Okay, so it is very important to not modify the references. Always modify the original. And if I by mistake modify this, I can right click the channel and sync channel to the original. Okay, so now I am back to the normal relationship. Okay, so now I have the backup, and I can create another copy of the backup. Okay, so it is important to have the backup because the backup is empty. Okay, so sorry, I have the backup is empty, so I always will create the new layers from this empty backup. And now I will create the big fill. So I have the layer called big, and I will create a new style called big. Okay, and maybe the big will have, I don't know, this color. Okay, and now I will go back to none, select the big here as default color, and now I will paint the big in all frames. Okay, this is faster than before. I think we had a problem here. I think this head. Okay, now it is solved. So I will continue painting the big. For all frames. Okay, so here is it. Okay, so we have our basic animation, which is made by 3 layers, and maybe I can create a 4th layer called eyes, and in this layer I can paint the eyes in white. So this is the final one. Okay, and I have the eyes, so I have my character done. So now I will select all the layers, including the backup, and group them, and I will group them in a layer called bird head. Okay, so now we have our head. Now we can put this head to a rigged character, and this is one of the things I like about having frame by frame animation inside Anime Studio. So let me show you. I will open the library and I will import the Space Woman. So I have the Space Woman here. Now I will close the library, and the Space Woman, you know, it is animated with bones and has a little animation here. Okay, so I will put the bird head inside. I will color this to make it more visible. I will put this inside the character. Okay, so you can see how the bird's head is now inside the character, but the head is being distorted by the bones. Okay, so I don't want that distortion, so I will bind the entire head to a bone, to the bone which controls the head. Okay, so now it is bind, and I can scale it and move it to make it more part of this body. So now I have this head. I will hide the other one. Okay, so now I have the animation of the body made with a rigged character, but the head is made by frame, and I could continue adding frames, drawing inside this head. Okay, so in this case it can be very useful, because you could have frame by frame animation inside a rig. So for example, you could have a character with hands made by frame, but all the rest of the body made with rigging. So you can combine these two worlds. So finally, we can modify the head color. For example, I can go to the style of the head to make the color to be more in the Space Woman world. So let's suppose this. Okay, so now it works better than before. Okay, but the idea is not having an space bird, but is to see how we can work with these tools together. So another examples I have, I will open them. I have two examples here of a project I was working on. So for example, in this file, I have two characters running, and they become together into a heart. Okay, so these are two ears that becomes a heart. Okay, so to make this animation more convincing, I don't know if that is the word, to make this animation to work better, I created a frame by frame animation here. Let me show you that. So the frame by frame animation give some kind of explosion of more liquid to my vector normal animation. So I have rig, but when they blend together, there is a frame-by-frame animation helping on that blend. So that was something that in previous version was very difficult to do, and it is great to have it inside the same software. And the other one, which is not this, not this, not this, this one, I needed to create these characters to transform into the others. So this is vector animation with bones. You can see the bones here. Okay, so it is basically vector animation plus bones. Okay, but to give it a better result, I also add a frame-by-frame animation over it. So now you can see how the frame-by-frame animation helps to give the sensation these characters are transforming into another. Okay, so of course there are several ways to combine frame-by-frame animation and rigged animation. Actually today I think Fangs Manane posted a very interesting post in the forum where he rigged a very basic character and animated, and then used that animation as base to create frame-by-frame animation. So the result was very good, and I think it was a very good example about combining these two words, just like we did with the fire. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. So I am done here, and I'm ready for the questions. So thank you for watching.
Great, thank you, Victor. All right, we're close to an hour now, so we are going to go over a little bit. We apologize for that, but if you would like to ask any questions, please type them in the window now, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. We do have some good questions already. I do want to apologize for the construction in the background. Victor's neighbors unexpectedly are doing some construction today, so I apologize.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I apologize for that. Okay, let's start with the first question then. Do you sometimes work on a multi-scene animation project with a number of characters and shots in a single Anime Studio file? Is this efficient?
Okay, no, normally I work one scene, one take for file. So then we put all together using another software like Adobe Premiere, or maybe sometimes I put all together only using QuickTime. They have a very simple basic tools to put all videos together. So normally I work that way. So we define first an animatic with the length of each scene and each take, and we separate all that in a single file for each one. I think that's the best way to do, and it is cleaner and happier for your computer also.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Okay, here's one for you. In frame by frame, how many frames are typically used when animating from one frame to the next?
You can check the book, The Animator's Survival Kit from Richard Williams. He explains very well how to use different intervals of animation, but normally for let's say normal animation is made in twos. That means each frame is after two frames after the previous one. So that's the normal way to work when you are working at 24 frames per second. But for example, if you need faster movement, you will have to animate in once. That means every frame, every of the 24 frames will have a different drawing in between. So it will depend of the speed and maybe intensity of your animation, but I think I can't be sure about this, but I think the normal base is animating on twos.
Okay, great, thank you. That brings me back to the book that you mentioned. We had several people ask for the name of the book. I did type it in the chat window, but I want to make sure I got it right. Can you repeat what it was, Victor? The first one
Yeah,
you
it
mentioned?
was, yeah, Elemental Magic. It is right in the chat. Elemental Magic by Joseph Gilland. I don't
Okay,
know how to say Gilland, but
perfect.
Gilland.
The second book you mentioned, and you've mentioned it in webinars before, is the Animator's Survival Kit, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't remember the author of that book offhand.
Richard Williams.
Richard Williams. Okay, so
Mhm.
there you go. All right, next question. Let's see. Try and find one that was related to what you were on. Sorry about that. What is
Yep.
the file size saving compared to frame by frame approach? So
Sorry, can you repeat that?
when you're creating animations in frame by frame versus with rigged figures, what's the file comparison size? Is it a lot bigger? Is it the same?
I think it is if the animation is complex, it can be bigger. But actually, in Anime Studio 11, we have a new format for the files. So all files are very light. So I wouldn't worry about that. I have worked on very complex frame by frame animation, and it is not more than 1 or 2 megabytes, which is a very little size, considering the complexity of the scenes. So normally a file is much less than 1 megabyte. So there shouldn't be any problem. Actually, the Anime Studio 11 files are around the 10 sorry, are around the 10th part of the size of the Anime Studio 10 files, if that makes sense. They are lighter.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I've got a couple questions regarding masking, so I'll ask them together. Can you make a mask with a frame by frame layer?
Yes, you can make a mask. It is the same process when you make a normal mask with normal vector or other layers. I think anyway the masking won't preview well when you are doing frame by frame. So you will need to render to create a preview here to see how the masking is working, because in the work window, you won't see that very well. Okay, so but that's we are used to that behavior with masking. There are certain types of complex mask that can be showed very well in the main window.
Okay. Someone is asking, and I believe it was on what you're showing now currently on your screen. They were asking if you could show, sorry, I've got so many questions here. Okay, here we go. Can you show what's inside the frame by frame that's happening with the translation between these animals?
Yep, sure. Maybe I can hide the animals and just show you what is happening here. So you can see there are all these are shapes created with the blob brush. So this is what is happening here. Okay. So this, of course, combined with the other characters works better or looks better. And you can see I basically take, for example, in this case, the elephant will become the monkey. So I take the color of the monkey and start painting that color before the monkey appears. So, and then when the monkey appears, I painted the elephant colors. So that gives a better transition between the two characters. So again here, I started painting the octopus color before the octopus appeared. And the same before. Here is the color of the elephant. And then you have the color of the dog. Okay, so that's all. It is a lot of trial and error to get this, actually.
Okay, thank you. Okay, someone would like to know with AS Pro 11, is there an easier way to show movement in a background layer to simulate walking, driving, flying, etc. in a loop with an animated character on the top layer synced on the speed or movement? Did you get that?
I'm not sure.
They're asking if there's an easier way to show the movement in the background, I guess, when you're syncing with a character.
Yeah, but I think I can't answer that because I don't know what is happening on his file. So
Okay.
I can bet there is a better way, but I don't know what.
Okay, sorry, we tried to answer that for you. Okay, if you're combining frame by frame on twos with rigged, should the rigged interval be twos as well?
Yeah, yes, that's the better option. Actually, I have, you can check in the forum, I created a short tutorial about animating in twos by using rigged characters. I think that tutorial solves all these questions, but the simple answer is yes. You need to synchronize that on twos normally, because if you don't do that, you will get some kind of shivering animation, because one frame will be one character will be moving at different time than the other, and that creates some shivering animation, or staggering. It is similar to what happened when you set the stagger. Sorry, I want to open this window. It is similar to what happened when you set the stagger animation and the animation vibrates. Okay, so it is better to have both on twos.
Okay, great. All right, we have a few more questions that we'll try and slip in here. When you have a lot of points on an object, does the new JSON file format help improve that at all? Do you know, from older versions of Anime Studio? Do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah. From what I remember, I think now Anime Studio always increase the amount of points it can support in animation. So I think version 11 also do that. And also, it is not exactly the same, but it is related. If you use the freehand tool or the the block brush, you have the smoothing option. So you can play with this option. And for example, if I create a shape or a line without smoothing, for example this one, and I create something similar with a lot of the smoothing, if I show the points, you can see how the smooth line has much less, or has less points than the other one. So if you are drawing, it is good to have at least a little bit of smoothing, and that will help to decrease the amount of points in similar shapes. But anyway, the amount of points that Anime Studio supports is bigger than before, I think.
Okay. Someone's also asking, when it comes to smoothness, do animations look better when you use 24 frames per second? And also, what is the highest frames per second you've used?
Okay, I think it is not an easy question because it is related to the style you want, but I can give you some general ideas. For example, if you animate at I don't know 60 frames per second, your animation will look very very not hand.
Oh no. Victor, are you there? Hello? Hello? Seems like we've lost Victor. Can you all hear me still? Can someone answer in the questions window? Okay, sorry everyone. I don't know what's happening. We're having a lot of issues today. There still were some questions that I was hoping to get Victor to answer, but maybe we will just end the webinar now and we can try answering those in the forum for you. I'm really sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and mute Victor. There we go. And I'm going to move on to the slides to finish up the webinar. Okay. All right. I'm hoping you can all see my screen now. There we go. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Apologize again for the construction and the technical difficulties. On our screen, you can see if you would like more information on Anime Studio, you can go to our website at anime.smithmicro.com. For more on our webinars and to watch the recording of this webinar, you can go to mysmithmicro.com/webinars. And there is also an official Anime Studio forum, and that is at lostmarble.com. And I'll try and see if I can get Victor to post some of these answers. Oh my gosh. Victor?
Sorry, I'm back. Yeah,
okay. We're wrapping up the webinar right now. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Sorry.
Hang on 1 second. Okay. So as I was saying, you can go to the Lost Marble website and we'll try and answer these questions that we didn't get to. Also, as you can see on the screen, follow us on social media. Follow us on social media at Facebook or Twitter. For the best deals on Anime Studio, subscribe to our email list. You can see the place to do it there. And we also have educational pricing if you are a teacher or a student. You can find that on our website as well. Lastly, to view more of Victor's work, you can go to his YouTube channel there or his company's website, floorfilms.com. When you do go to Lost Marble on the forum, he's known as Seljan. So if you see his posts there, you can talk to him or ask him questions. All right. So Victor, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your work and helping us, and sorry about all the technical difficulties.
Yeah, no, thank you. I hope the webinar was useful for everyone, and sorry I had an electricity problem. It seems to be maybe
Oh,
because
no.
of my neighbors.
Oh, no.